So as a healthcare provider, I've helped patients with so many different things, from digestive issues to high blood pressure, from back pain to neck pain, pain syndromes, autoimmune issues, and the list could go on. If you name something, I've probably seen it. I've had patients coming in with irritable bowel syndrome, from ulcerative colitis, all kinds of things that we've helped people with in our office. And recently we've moved a lot towards more autoimmune issues because it's something I've dealt with, specifically psoriasis. Now, I really, I've helped a lot of people with a lot of things, but the stuff I love to teach on are the things that I've actually experienced myself. Okay, so I had psoriasis for 34 years, but I've also had a lot of other health issues that I don't talk a ton about that were all linked to this same problem, the same issue. And so I want to kind of take a step forward and talk about those things as well, because I think they can be very helpful when someone's telling something about something they've experienced, right? I'm gonna tell you about what I've experienced myself, not only what I've helped patients with, but what I actually personally went through. I think it has a bigger impact. And so I've had, growing up, I suffered with psoriasis, but I also, when I got into high school or middle school and high school, all the way into college, I had very severe acne. So I had a bunch of acne issues. Personally, I've had eczema a little bit, but my son, who's now 2 years old, almost 2 years old, started having eczema. We were doing everything right, and he started getting eczema. And so I want to talk to you about that. How do you actually get rid of something like eczema when you feel like you're already doing everything right? Now, first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give you 5 things today that if you have eczema or if your child has eczema, these are the first 5 things you wanna start with. There might be more to it, to their story, but I'll tell you from my son, he was born probably about a year and a half ago, I guess. And everything was good. Great healthy birth. It was a home birth. Everything was good. Everything was healthy with him. He's been breastfed now for his entire life. He didn't actually introduce foods until about 9 months in. And when we introduced foods is when we started to see the eczema starting to kick in, okay? And when you're someone that does everything right and all the things that you think might have caused eczema you're not doing, it becomes confusing. So we had to deep dive into that. And the first thing that we actually did is we started to make a shift in the foods that we're feeding him. And so we looked at this. Some things that we were already doing, we weren't using sugar, okay? So one of the first steps, if your child has eczema, from working with patients with eczema and from my own son having eczema, it's very important that you take these refined sugars out, right? It's okay to, fructose in fruit and in vegetables and things like that, but when you're doing these refined sugars, I know that the first birthday, the cake is like this very special thing that people like to do for some reason. For a 1-year-old, I don't understand it at all. But for some reason, that's what we like to do. We like to pump them full of sugar because it's a memorable thing for us, and we think it's going to be, this beneficial thing for their life. But then we know that sugar causes cancer, it causes diabetes, it causes heart disease, it causes every health issue that we have. But for some reason, we feel like it's very important that we give that to our child at 1 year old. It doesn't make sense to me. And so we didn't do that. We didn't give them sugar, but that is the first step. If you're someone that has a child with eczema or you have eczema, first step, remove the refined sugars. That one is crucial, and it's a step you usually cannot get past, okay? So number one, removed refined sugars. The second thing, and this is something we actually had to do for our son, is that we were, crackers and things like that. Now, they were organic, they're gluten-free, they were, for the most part, clean products, but some of them did have things like sunflower oil and different seed oils in them. And seed oils can be very inflammatory to the body, and for a lot of people, they don't digest them very well, creates too much omega-6 fatty acids. And so that's something we said, okay, we need to take those out. We weren't doing a lot of them, but we need to start to take those out. So we took out seed oils, and that's what I'm gonna recommend. If you have a child with eczema or you have eczema, take seed oils out. And the hardest part about seed oils is they're in everything. Sunflower oil, safflower oil, sesame seed oil, all these different seed oils, and they're just very inflammatory to the body. They have a high omega-6 count and ultimately causes the ratios of fats to be off, okay? So seed oils is next. The other thing we did, which we had already done, we were already doing with him, I'll be clear on that, is we removed gluten. However, we also removed dairy, which is a big one. He was eating cheese. He was eating organic raw cheese, and we felt like that would be okay with him in the beginning, but that's something that we removed. And I'll tell you how we kind of realized what it was that was causing his eczema here at the end here. So we started to remove dairy, already had the gluten out, but again, if you haven't taken gluten out, guys, if you have kids, just don't give them it. It's not good for anybody. It's super inflammatory, and it definitely can lead to eczema. but dairy is another one. And I'm not talking about, usually goat's milk, he does okay with goat's milk, but cow's milk, dairy. Number 3, we made sure, and we had already done this, but we double checked everything on this area, that we got all chemicals out of his diet, okay? Meaning that any of the foods that were maybe packaged foods, we have these little fruit roll-up things, and we have some crackers and things like that. They're just kind of easy things to give a kid quickly, right? Some of those things, ours personally didn't, but for a lot of people, things like goldfish and other preservatives, chemicals, food dyes, those are things that will literally have a huge effect on the immune response. And eczema ultimately that's what it is. It's an immune response coming out of the skin. If you go on the Mayo Clinic website, start to read about eczema, and they literally dive into that. The final thing we did, and this is something that, if you want to get rid of it, I say go all in. So the final thing we did is for my wife, because she was the one breastfeeding him, and he was still early on, we weren't ready to do it for him. But for my wife, we got rid of, she did our food allergy test, and she got rid of her food allergies. Now, eventually we'll do that for him when the time's right for us. I'm not saying that you can't do it for someone, 1.5-year-old, but for us, we just haven't decided to do that yet. However, removing those food allergies, again, it gets rid of some of that immune response that can be happening there, because at the end of the day, the baby gets the mom's digestive system, okay? And so if there's any kind of issues in the mom's GI tract, there's gonna have issues in the child's GI tract, okay? And so I can say that we did those things right there. That's exactly what we did, and he doesn't have eczema, okay? And that's been gone away, and it will come back when he eats, guess what? When he eats dairy. So what we did is we did all these things. We took these foods out. We took the bad fats out, the seed oils out. We took out and made sure gluten and dairy was out, and food allergies and chemicals and preservatives and all those things were out. And then we went back and said, okay, what can we add back in that might not be that bad for him? And dairy was the first thing. It's like, hey, organic raw cheese, not really a horrible food for you. And so we add that back into his diet, and guess what? Eczema starts coming back. And so for him, it was getting rid of dairy was probably the biggest game changer. And every time that it gets back in on accident, he starts to get the cracking in his ear right here, or I'm sorry, below right here. He'll get a crack here. It was all the way in his legs. It was on his arms through here, on his scalp. It got really bad. And so I share that with you because, it's even if you feel like you're doing all the right things, like we felt like we were, it's all about how well the body's handling stress and if it's creating an immune response. We live in a world where there's a lot of different variables, and so you really have to become your own health expert and start to think, okay, what is it? When you have a symptom, when you have a health issue or skin issue or anything like that, you have to start deep diving for yourself and investigate these things. What I shared with you today is the first steps I would recommend for everyone to make changes. This is what we teach our patients when their kids have eczema, and probably the biggest success rate in our office, or the fastest thing we've been able to get rid of, is eczema, and it's because of that right there, okay? Because many times it's just some simple lifestyle changes we can start to shift. Now for some people, we've had to go into other stressors in their life, emotional stress, just other things as well, deep diving into things like stool testing and other areas as well. But for most people, you just start to make those changes I told you right there, and you're gonna see eczema change. Hey guys, share if you did this, if you follow this and your kid's eczema or your eczema goes away, put this in the comments. Put that in the comments and tell us if it worked, okay? Or maybe you've tried some of the things I've said and it didn't work. Put that too, because I want to be able to give you feedback on what you might be able to change. But make sure you subscribe to this channel. We're always putting out new information, guys. A lot of it's on skin issues like eczema and psoriasis. We're gonna be talking about acne here in a little bit as well. I'm also gonna deep dive in another thing that I had a lot of issues with, which is probably what caused my psoriasis, acne, and other health issues, was irritable bowel syndrome and digestive issues. And so we're gonna deep dive into that as well on this channel. Cool? So keep watching, become your own health expert, and we'll talk to you next time.